Okay, just a general check-in for everyone because Bob, I just ran past your post from the future back in January. So, and it very much amused me, and I wonder if anybody else was in the same boat and how you were doing. Bob said, at this point, I'm unsure if I found a rope or lost a horse. Pretty great. How are you guys, like spot check? How's everybody doing? How about you guys up there? Is you feeling like you found a place in the stream? How about you, Bob? How you feeling? Where's your rope and your horse?
I figured out I need a bigger desk because between the desktop, my notebook, the tablet, books, the photocopies, I'm just too much stuff.
Yeah, I spread out too. I have my office at home. I don't use it. I'd rather be in the kitchen with my stuff spread out and where everybody else is. So we have to pick everything up all the time. So anyway, how about you, Jennifer? How you doing?
I think I'm doing well. The only question I really have is I see our next RPs are supposed to be over things we've shared already in the Zotero. So I just wanted a little clarification on
Sure.
that.
Thank you for asking that. You get to Zotero. So what I'd like you guys to share is you've been collecting stuff in your little 20 entries folder. So Jennifer, Jennifer, you're going to talk to us. Which one of these are you going to? Is the Digital Humanities project you're going to talk to us about?
You mean? Well, I already did.
Yeah. Okay. So for example, this 10 Dragons from British Folklore could be one of the ones that you talked to us about. So something that we don't know about that you've collected already.
Okay, so it's really no extra thing to do. I just will present whatever's cool.
Yes, present whatever's cool. The idea here is to get each other hyped up to look in each other's folders to find good stuff. So
good. Okay, thank you.
Bad. How about you, Katie? How you doing?
Doing good. Tamara wanted me to let you know she's not here tonight because her daughter had a baby today, so she'll be at the hospital. Which is exciting. But we were able to meet up to talk about our group project, or like our final project this week. So that was pretty great too.
Okay. I'm a little trouble hearing you, but I can definitely hear your daughter.
Sorry.
No. She's adorable. It makes me happy.
That I got to meet up with Tamara to talk about our group project or our final project this week. So that was good. And
can you tell us a little bit about that?
So my initial idea was the Jane project that we had talked a little bit about, having the different Janes throughout different time periods and seeing kind of different how those differed even with that similar thread. And her idea for a project was creating like social media accounts sort of for historical figures. And so we just kind of combined ours and we're able to kind of put those two things together. So it's looking cool so far. So we'll see.
So it'll still be about Janes and it'll still be over time, but the Janes will have social media, Twitter accounts and so forth.
That will be one of the things that you're able to see through it. So for each Jane, there will be like different kind of buttons. You'll be able to see different elements, and that will be one of the things that you can look at.
Okay, very cool. How about you, Abigail? How you doing?
I think I'm doing pretty good. I think I've found a what do I call it? A routine that I've.
Good, excellent. We're not quite at the halfway mark. We're at week 6. I can't believe that. And how about you, Bob or Peter? How are you doing? You got a horse and rope and everything's good?
Yes, I am doing well. I've got a pretty good routine, pretty good idea of where things are going.
Excellent. I've been looking at the stuff. I pulled up your final project, so we'll talk about that in a minute, if you don't mind. And Lonnie, you're good? Good, all right. Thumbs up. Joyce, you good?
Yes.
All right. Daniel,
Yeah.
Brian? Okay, I'm good too. Marie? Chris?
Great.
All right. That's good. All right, let's do this then. On Thursday of week 9, that's the week right before spring break, I'm going to be at 4Cs. So it just occurs to me that may not be a reminder. I hope that is, but in any case, we won't have this meeting because I'll be at C's. Instead, you'll just do what was already scheduled. What I've done is, you were going to be reading articles from a special issue in college English about digital humanities projects that used archival materials in our field, and so I thought it would be useful, since we didn't get a chance really to talk about rhetoric and digital humanities. We will eventually, but I thought that might be a nice time for you guys to look at. So there'll be some authors in common in the rhetoric and digital humanities and the college English piece, and there'll be some digital humanities projects in common from these two. So it might be nice blog post fodder to look at the projects from those two angles. The one in college English is specifically about research methods and ethics surrounding research and archival materials. And then rhetoric and digital humanities is broader, so making some arguments there. So we made that argument using the same digital humanities project about using questions from our discipline and borrowing from other disciplines' methods to answer questions that we're asking in our discipline. And then the college English piece was about why we decided that the digital humanities enabled us to do the things that we weren't able to do without. So so we talked about the Remixing Rural Texas project. Anyway, so you'll just be doing the same. I'm just blogging instead of coming here. And then what's due next time? Same as last time. I do have a couple of suggestions that I hope will be good fodder. And these are just suggestions. This is whatever you guys want to do. It's totally up to you. Those blogs are open. So rhetorical précis coming up. Readings for next week. We're going to be reading reading machines, and I do tell you ahead of time, you're going to run across very quickly mathematical equation that stopped me in my tracks and gave me flashbacks. I could understand the words going to that point, and then when I hit those words, my mind went blank and I forgot everything that came before that. So then I recovered, my family was smelling salts and so forth, and I asked my brother-in-law to tell me what the hell that equation meant, and it actually meant what we were talking about. He was talking about in the pages that came before. So this is more qualitative stuff, quantitative stuff, numbers, math. That mashup is painful, but I think it's good for us, and it's necessary if we want to get more about what the digital humanities can do. But that doesn't mean that we have to do these big numbers, quantitative stuff to be doing digital humanities, as you know. So next time we're going to finish up Emergence for the Digital Humanities. We're going to spend most of the time today on that book, and then your rhetorical précis on reading maps, graphs, and yeah, that one. Then we're going to start on reading machines. And then this is what Jennifer was talking about, a selection from your contributions to your 20 entries thing that we don't know about yet. And then we'll finish up reading machines. This is the week that I'll be gone. And then I did just put in there, this is week spring break. I did account for that. And then we'll be looking at post-colonialism, critical digital humanities. So, and a few different things. I've asked you, if you haven't blogged already, about your final project. If you haven't already gone to see what other people are saying about the final projects that they might be doing, go respond to them. You might also look at, since we're going to be talking a lot this week and next week about that line between virtual and real, and whether it exists, and what does real mean and what does virtual mean, and all of that flim-flammy kind of the inside-outness, the aversion. I think it might be a nice time for us to go back to that post that you guys did during that week that we didn't have a class meeting about your response to Gibson's Neuromancer and the ideas that he presents, specifically the original idea of cyberspace, and then the ways that Jones works it with in terms of the aversion. Anyway, each of you guys said some cool stuff, so go back and see what people said back there. That is an idea, since you have to comment on people's stuff and create posts. That's just one thought that you might do, and that would be useful fodder for us to discuss during our last day that we're talking about the emergence of the digital humanities next week, and also just ongoing talking about your final project. Daniel was just talking to me about a couple of project ideas, and if you don't mind sharing with us, these guys can weigh in.
One idea I had was looking at the.
Can you guys hear okay? Okay, good.
All right. The rock band Thin Lizzy, and their place in Ireland and kind of the time period of the 60s and 70s. And maybe creating like a timeline of what's going on in the world while they're creating their music. But also I was thinking about a play called The Loves of Cass McGuire. I gave a presentation last semester at a conference. And in the play it covers 50 years of history and some major changes that takes place in the in Ireland. And they have a lot of pop cultural references of Irish culture and American culture. And so I was thinking about maybe a project similar to like the Digital Dubliners, but have the play and have either like a song clip that they mention, or like Abbott and Costello when they mention them, and just have that information available. Because when I read the play, I found myself looking up that information, and it'd be pretty cool, I think, to have that there, kind of like a Digital Dubliner. So one of those two. I
agree. So I was looking at, and when we get to doing the digital humanities, we'll do more of this, but one of the tools that Joan speaks about and that comes up a lot are two things. Omeka, which is a platform like WordPress, but it's specifically designed to do handle like digital museums, academic projects, and then this Neatline is a plugin that where you can bring together maps and archival materials. And I thought that it also would do a timeline at the same time, timeline and a map. Something else is in my head that maybe it's a plugin for that Neatline that does that. But that was what we were originally thinking we were going to use for Remix in Real Texas, because it had both. So in your project you could I don't know, you can touch the map and you can watch the timeline slide, and you can see what is happening simultaneously in Paris that might be going on in Tokyo at the same time. So anyway.
That's a program?
Yeah, Neatline, and Omeka is Omeka, this one. Omeka, that's part of it. So, and you can look at what people have done with it as well. And we'll talk some about this too. But there are a number of projects. It's really just a website builder, but it's got tools that are more flexible and easier to use, and some plugins. Again, you don't have to build this stuff, but it'll be an awareness of those tools when you get to them will be useful. So, what do you guys think of this project? Which one? Do you guys think one seems more promising than the other? Which one would you want to see out in the wild? You like what?
You want to play?
Yeah.
You like to play? You guys like to play? What do you say, Katie? Yeah.
Yeah, I like the one with the play.
Okay.
Yeah, because it talks about this lady who immigrated to America from Ireland, and all the changes that happened when she returns to Ireland, and so many things happen. You know, Ireland gains its independence, all these things happen, and she returns in the 70s after she had left 50 years earlier. So
This is going to be good. Yeah.
It'd be an interesting
project. What happened?
I was driving me nuts. Omeka is the name of the program that they talked about in the RP I did, where there was problems. You can use it for free if you house the data, but you pay if they house the data. That was the program that the university had a problem with.
Oh, they didn't like it.
They didn't want to. They didn't want them to. They had a policy against housing small-scale servers for individual projects.
Oh,
so they
boy.
couldn't go that route, but the coworker on the project was at another university, so they were able to do it there. I knew that was familiar.
I appreciate you talking about that. That is those details that you won't have to deal with in this class, or things that you need to know are out in the wild. That, you know, where's it going to live, and servers, and, you know, and URLs and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, like WordPress is free. Actually, if you can store on their stuff for free, but they limit it and you can pay for more. But anyway, and it's got WordPress and URL, and so all that. All right. So let's do your presentations. Brian, you want to start with you?
Sure. So this is a very, very early example of a digital humanities project. It's called the Cyberpunk Project. This is directly from the website. I tried to put in parentheses that SIC next to the typos, but that triggered autocorrect. So I know there's two in here, but we're gonna just power through. This is directly from the website. The Cyberpunk Project is a remotely available data well net of files about cyberpunk subculture, cyberpunk science fiction, and general cyberculture in the form of collected information. It is a result of years of gathering data and sorting it to compile a host of cyberpunk information-related documents and work. It started in '96 and was actively supported until late 2002. It was started, you could tell it was started in the 90s because everybody who worked on it has, we would look at it now as like a gamer tag, but like a hacker name, like right? No one's actual name is on it. And it went through 3 major iterations called compiles. There's still a compiler on duty listed if the link will cooperate. So here are the people, right? Mad Maniac, right? These are not their real names. There's a compiler on duty right now, and I've seen certain articles that have been updated as late as 2017. So someone's still keeping an eye on this. Whoever Rodeo Action is probably the one currently doing it. So rather than tracing the term cyberpunk through just the source material, through just science fiction books and movies, it tried to trace the term through major aspects of daily life. You can look at this as a how-to guide on how to live like a Gibson character.
Definitely has the aesthetics of the 90s.
Right, it looks like a GeoCities page.
Yeah, it does. No, there's no flash.
No.
Saying under construction or something.
I went with the PowerPoint for it because this way I could curate, because a lot of the links are dead.
Okay.
So that's why I have the specific things.
The link might work if you press that little doohickey that starts the show down here.
According to the subculture part of this excerpt here, cyberpunk escaped from being a literary genre to a cultural reality. People started calling themselves cyberpunks. The media started calling people. All of this is from this book here, Mondo 2000, which you could still buy for $3 American on Amazon. So what happened was late 90s, early 2000s, there was a big cultural push to adopt the aesthetic in the Gibson books and sort of wear that, sort of like try to live that way. Movies like Hackers were coming out, right? That whole scene was very big. And that's when this was an active site. Look at this guy. So fashion, it goes through, it says, there's not any exact cyberpunk clothing style. Most dress a bit futurist, dress usually dark, even completely black. Some prefer gothic styles. If anyone remembers that movement. attitude. The website seems to have this. I'll read because this is kind of interesting. It's interesting to me. One of the main aspects of Gibson's world is drug use. While still technically illegal, drugs seem as common and socially acceptable as alcohol and maybe as coffee. Widespread drug use in the future doesn't seem to me to be an unlikelihood, but what makes Gibson's portrayal of it so stunning is the feeling of sheer quantity and variety which he creates. Pills and germs of all kinds. What I can't figure out, however, is Gibson's stance on the whole thing. You can't tell if Gibson is making a value judgment, right? Because in case the character is a drug addict, his ability to do drugs is held hostage over him as a way to get him to comply with the job. They crippled his nervous system when he stole from an employer. They fix it, but they also make him immune to drugs. They made his liver like it doesn't work on him anymore. So he wants to be able to use drugs again and tries to use different drugs through the course of the book. Like, he's really driven to get high when he can't enter cyberspace. So even when he can, he's still kind of hooked on it. So the site authors here seem to grapple with, does Gibson have a value judgment here? And seem very frustrated that they can't pin him down as having one. Religion's a little wacky. Agnostics, atheists, neo-pagan, technocrat. It's wacky. If you want to click around here one day and see what they think about religion, this does work. It links to a lot of a lot of books you can still, like I said, find on Amazon for $3 American. So why did I go with this project? I mean, obviously the Gibson, the science fiction, that was kind of enough said. My particular research interests are modern Russian written science fiction, and this whole thing is it's .ru. This is a Russian website. So that, I had no idea that was going to pan out that way. It was just the only William Gibson project that I found happened to be housed in Russia. So I thought that was interesting. It has that shows the global appeal of the world. There are limitations, not actively supported, lots of dead links, but it does have a lot of potential as a template for what I think one person could do. Like in 96 and 98, this was a lot. There was a team working on this, but I don't think anyone in here would have too hard a time putting together something that looked a lot like this, probably a little better in a weekend, right? So, and then I figured we'd just like go back to it, which we're already at, and sort of click around. So it does deal with science fiction. It talks about literary movement born in the 80s. Neuromancer comes up, history and science fiction, 80s cyberpunk, 80s and 90s, in the 90s. And these are all like the kind of fanzines that you'll hear about if you try to do any kind of bibliography work in fantasy or science fiction. Before there was a academic movement of it, all the literature was on websites, fanzines, stuff that wasn't academic, wasn't peer-reviewed, wasn't anything you could cite, but it was definitely out there. And links to other authors and stuff. Johnny Mnemonic is a movie, but it's also a William Gibson wrote that. Keanu Reeves was in it. And the last thing here is, I mean, they're international links. Like this, I mean, obviously, I don't know if this is really Bulgarian or not, but when you click the Bulgarian.
So we haven't looked at many examples of fans putting together digital humanities projects, but there are lots of them, and there are now increasingly a lot of, I was looking for one that I think I understand it's a Sherlock Holmes fan fiction that had been going on for decades, because the stuff that has been recently picked up by a university to be a digital humanities project. And I'm looking now at a Star Wars fan fiction that has been picked up as a digital humanities project at the University of Pennsylvania. But there are digital humanities projects launched and maintained like this entirely away from any academic influence, which many fans, I'm sure cyberpunk folks, are not going to be looking for an academic host.
Well, it's interesting because Gibson's like our Lem. Like Stanislaw Lem is like the literary science fiction guy. And that's William Gibson now.
Right.
But in the 80s,
Right.
no. In the 90s,
this
no.
is a-
But now,
I mean, the whole idea of punk is going to be not.
yeah. But he's one of the ones if you go to the academic search and just type in William
course.
Gibson, now you'll find stuff. But
he's
at the
definitely part
time,
of the canon.
this was all you had.
Yeah. Yeah. So, these labors of love are not uncommon. All right.
So that's it.
Thank you so much. Excellent.
No
Thank
problem.
you. Do you guys have questions for Brian?
I really like that it's an older digital community because everything we're seeing is like all this new, and I like to see, I don't know, I guess I hadn't thought about it before.
Yeah.
When we talk about it going back that far, to see it, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, we really only looked at an example from the 50s and then we go straight to the 2000s.
Yeah.
And this was what year, 96?
96 to early 2002.
When was the Matrix? Was that 98? 97, something like that?
I don't know.
So I like on the readings that we have, it talks about all the convergence of like all these things that are happening at the same time.
99.
99? Okay. So,
Yeah, they are happening all at the same time.
It's interesting.
Those glasses, oop, that's Molly Millions. That's right out of Neuromancer.
Excellent. Okay, thank you so much. Katie, did you have something on Zotero that you want me to pull up, or?
Yes. So
this way.
it's under my 20 items.
Okay.
So the working title of this presentation is "How many times can Katie say?" So game, but I played it back and I was like, well, it's not going to get better. So turns out that's just my killer noise.
Excellent. Okay.
I'll also just update this by saying after I did this screencast, my students actually used this as part of a lesson we did yesterday, day before in class. So it was kind of neat to be able to like implement something immediately that because they're just starting their study of Macbeth and this about staging Shakespeare. So
Excellent.
Yeah.
Hey guys, so the digital humanities project that I'm going to be guiding us through today is called Shakespeare's Staging. I'm just going to link to it through the Zotero. So I'm going to start with the rhetorical précis just so that we kind of have a starting point, and then I'll move into the actual project. It says Hugh Richmond, Professor Emeritus of English at the University of California, Berkeley, in his digital humanities project Staging Shakespeare, expounds upon the need for literature to be a comprehensive experience, not limited to the words on a printed page. Richmond and his team support their claim by providing a variety of evidence to give background into the actual staging and experience of attending a Shakespearean play that may otherwise be missed. The team's purpose is to intensify the education and entertainment afforded by Shakespeare's works in order to better equip the audience with an idea of how the writer intended his work to be seen. The author writes in a persuasive and academic tone for researchers, students, and teachers interested in Shakespeare. All right, so I'm going to go to the website. This project's part of the UC Berkeley Shakespeare program, and it says its purpose is to assume that the study of literature should be a comprehensive experience, like I said. So this is exactly the kind of digital humanities project I was hoping to find, basically something that I would be able to use in my classroom. I hope that you like it too, because I think it's a really cool resource. I feel like a lot of times we talk to our students about the way Shakespeare's plays were received by the audience, like in his time, but when we try to read it, it doesn't give them really the same like experience that they would get from actually seeing the play. And this site kind of rectifies some of that. You can click on this front page, it says, it gives a little background about the project and that you'll be able to explore the site by the play, by the period, or by the topic. We are going to look at staging the plays. So you can basically just pick any of Shakespeare's plays that that would have been staged. So for example, if I want to go with Romeo and Juliet, when I click on that, it has an overview of the play itself. It has some of the images of different plays and performances that have been put on. And through that, you can even click within that group. I want to see manuscripts, or I want to see building and site photos, or it looks like production media has the most. And through that, you can say, I only want to see pictures of Juliet. And it will bring up different images associated with that, and a little bit of like background information about that source. It also, besides pictures and the overview, they have slideshows. It would have slideshows of the actual play information, like performing that play, but it also has other topics from that time period. So since Romeo and Juliet, a lot of it, deals with their marriage, you could see Renaissance marriages, and it would have, different information about that topic. And that's different for each of the different plays. It has commentary, so essays associated with that play. This particular one is by the author, or by the person in charge of this particular project, and then bibliographical information. And then if you go to staging by period, so you can see like in the Renaissance theaters before Shakespeare, and then it has the same types of information, images, videos, slideshows about, from different time periods. I also really liked this topics and performance tab. So say my students were going to look at researching some kind of outside sources while we were studying Macbeth, for example, then they might be able to go into, race and gender and casting, or gender and performance, or Renaissance and Baroque theaters. And it would give them, again, an overview of kind of what happened having to do with that topic in that time period. It has, again, different images that would relate to that, commentary, bibliographical information. And there's also a blog associated with the project. So I think that's kind of interesting as a feature for a digital humanities project. One of the best features, I think, for this particular project, and that I do think it could be better implemented, but would be cool for a lot of these projects, is the how to use the site tab. So I can say how to use the site, and as a teacher, and click on that, and it gives examples of what you can do, different ways you can use the site as part of your lesson planning. So you can encourage students to memorize and perform brief extracts from assigned scripts. You can ask local Shakespeare companies for class visits, or whatever, but it gives different examples of things you could do by using this as a source, how you could implement that into your lessons, which I think is really a cool kind of extra. Under the researcher portion, it talks about, it's straight says, this site cannot cover the enormous range of material relevant to the performance of Shakespeare's plays, but what it does is establish starting points for investigation, and it gives a lot of bibliographical references that you can use for like cross-referencing if you were going to do some type of research on Shakespeare, which I think is really awesome that it gives you that much information. It says there's 40 links that to different sites that have other information that you can, like I said, cross-reference if you were to do research, or if your kids needed to, find other evidence to support whatever claim they were making about their about whatever it was that they were studying. What else? Like I said, I just really enjoyed this because I felt like you could really easily implement this into your classroom or into my classroom with Macbeth information. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Do you guys have any questions for Katie?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead. Jen.
I teach this too, and this is awesome. I would totally use this. Did I miss you saying, or did you say, is there like a link to the plays themselves, like that, like YouTube would have, you know, either Shakespeare in the Park or the movie versions or anything?
Right. I didn't see that, but it does have like still frames. It has like slideshows. It's more like background information than the actual like text or performances. But it had, I don't know, my kids used it, like I said, this week, and some of them were like, okay, these pictures are a little weird, but I think it gave them just better ideas of what the play would really look like. Instead of when their classmates are goofing off and trying to do Scottish accents. So,
yeah,
this is really.
I know we have to watch them because I'm pretty sure they won't read, you know, and they'll just go
really
to Spark Notes or something. So,
yeah, I usually don't, but yeah, I was trying to get stuff done today, so that's what we ended up doing.
Right.
Anybody else?
I really like the focus on venues, because I had never, and to predate Shakespeare with venues is really cool, because it would have been,
I really liked that.
yeah, it would have been what informed him before he got into it, and then since him. So that's probably where I would spend most of my time.
Yeah.
Well, I would love to know, did you look at the unusual performances tab? Ducks on all duck ensemble or something. Yeah, that'll be everybody's treat. I just saw that one right here.
So, do they have a link to the sock puppet version of Macbeth?
Is there one, Bob?
Yeah.
I know there is.
Yeah, the sock puppet version. My question is, do they have any like period description, like people who had wrote letters to each other talking about when they went and heard the play, what it looked like?
I don't know, but that would be a cool idea.
Very cool. And that is brings up another really interesting thing, Bob, about your final project. There's no reason why what you propose to do might be a potential supplement to an existing site. That is something that does happen in partnership with these people. You can get a new grant to apply something new to it. But since this will be theoretical more than specific, that might be something to explore. I love it. Anything else? All right. Okay, we talked a little bit about your final projects. I want to, Peter shared his with us, and I'd love to talk a little bit about it. So he says, this is Peter here, for the final project, I'm thinking about putting together an interactive version of The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. Great story. And I'm just picturing the crazy wallpaper. You are, right now?
Wallpapers? Wow.
I've been intrigued by the website Genius. Do you guys know this one? Can you tell us something about that, Peter?
Well, basically for works of literature, lyrics, other items that are out of copyright, you can go to the website and you can find the text, and it's kind of like a wiki for comment. People can go in, annotate different parts that they find effective. It's not something that would be for students though, because it's completely open.
Yeah.
But something along the lines of that would be interactive for students to interact with, as well as I could also share it with other teachers, their teaching ideas, something along those lines.
Okay, I love it. So something that you can interactions across various texts that have passed into the public domain, and I would like to create a product that allows students and teachers to converse remotely about the story but also I transcribed this, so I screwed that up. But also to allow teachers to assess student responses with the text before them, and then also for teachers to interact with copies that other teachers have made in order to make the instructional content that much more robust. As the multiple teachers working on the same text would result in a lot less recreation of the wheel, but perhaps a sharp drop in fees. I transcribed this, so this is not him. In fees, not feels. I don't know what that but can you, Peter, talk a little bit about how you see? I mean, I love this massive crowdsourcing of material and ideas that would surround this particular story. You talk about teachers interacting with copy, students conversing remotely about the story. Would those be prompted by questions that you feed in and that other teachers feed in, or how do you see that working?
I think initially, yes. And then also as students, I mean, I teach AP juniors and seniors. So a lot of times their questions are as helpful, if not more helpful than mine. So as the scaffolding went by, having students be able to add questions as well, I think would be useful.
Excellent. I love it. I love it. And I wonder if there's some way to make use of the wallpaper. There has to be.
Make use of what?
Of the wallpaper itself, with all this information on it.
The questions come out of wallpaper.
Just sort of ooze out of the wallpaper or something.
Yeah, like when you roll across it, it magnifies, and that's where you look for something.
Oh.
That's a little hidden thing.
Interesting.
I don't know how to do that.
So creepy.
Somebody make that thing.
Somebody make that thing. You know, that's the theme of the course. Somebody make that thing.
We need a field trip to the computer science building, just show them and say, make this thing.
That's the way of the digital humanities, I think. Yes. Here's the thing. We need this thing. Make this thing. And then they like to make things, so it's a win-win.
They do.
Okay, so let's do this. We're going to, since we haven't been speaking much about the emergence of the digital humanities, you guys have been, in your blogs, a lot of really good conversations with this dense, sometimes perplexing perspective of digital humanities. I love it. I think it's really compelling, and I love what you guys are saying too, and pushing back and against and through this. And anyway, so, but we haven't had an opportunity to discuss it in real time. So what I'm going to be doing for the first part of this conversation is I'm going to sample some of your blog posts and then pop culture artifacts that really seem to work well, because when he wrote the book, there was Wreck-It Ralph 1, but now we have Wreck-It Ralph 2, which is about the internet, and I think it really offers some neat stuff. Then I want to talk about this 19 Wines, 19 Crimes augmented reality, which I wonder if some of you guys are familiar with, and then Second Life. And then we'll set aside plenty of time for you guys, for us to return to graphs, maps, and trees, but especially and primarily with your rhetorical précis on reading graphs, maps, and trees. Okay, so in turning to the emergence of the digital humanities, we start with the definition, and we haven't got a chance to do this yet, Joyce. Joyce has a visual for us. Can you talk to us about it? This is based on this definition, which I have here. The intersection of computational methods and humanities scholarship with a methodological commitment to thinking and theorizing through making.
And this was like, I've grown this definition, I think, a lot more since we studied this. Was like week 1, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe week 2.
Yeah, 31 it is.
Yeah. So I don't know. When I think in visual notes. It's just the way I learn, it's the way I replicate information. And so I just saw this, instead of an intersection, I was thinking more of a merging. Like we fish this all together and we would go down this road. And this is where we're headed. And that just came to mind, so I had to put it somewhere.
Well, I appreciate that. Do you have, are there more lanes now, or they, or how has it changed visually for you? Or do you not have that kind of knocked in?
Yeah, I don't have that solidified, but it's just, it gets more I'm gonna say complicated, that's not it. I just understand the roads a little bit.
Yeah.
Like computational method, that was huge. Like, what does that even mean? And so now it's starting to narrow down. Okay, there has to be some kind of data involved. It's not just blogging, and there has to be some purpose for it, not just a collection of randomness.
Right. It's a process
So
some
kind
way.
of solidifying and drawing boundaries for the roads.
Okay.
What can get on the road, what can't.
Okay.
Kind of things, I guess.
Okay, so that gets to my first question. At this point, how many definitions of the digital humanities are we juggling? Can you take a guess? I mean, is it as many books as we've read? What do you think, Lonnie? How many definitions of digital humanities do we have?
Houses, trees, flowers, highways, merging. And I'm sometimes having a problem knowing an exact definition for myself. Like I come across some websites sometimes and I think, would this be a digital humanity project or would this not? And then some I find are really cool, but it's like they're up and coming. They're not finished with it yet. And so I'm like, ooh, can I do an RP over this one? It's going to be really cool in 3 years when it's done. You know, I don't know. I think it's like, I don't know that we have one solid definition because I don't think it will fit into one.
Yeah, it's always changing. And thanks for bringing that up. Yes, please do bring in unfinished, started and just dreamed about digital humanities projects, because there's going to be a lot of that out there that doesn't quite get funded, that doesn't quite work out. You know, this is like workshop floor kind of stuff, heavy collaboration. Yeah. So please, there are going to be a lot of those, and yours is going to be another one of those. So it probably will, and you know, it might be something that you might reach out to these people if you get really interested in it. It might be something, even if you don't pursue it as a digital humanities project, it could be something you guys present together about or something like that. So yeah, and everybody likes to hear that thing you're doing is very cool. Okay, so I know that uncertainty is troublesome, and so, I mean, the idea of certainty is built into the very definition of definition. I looked that up because I thought, you know, what are we doing here? This is, we've got to do it. Everybody tries to do it, but we can't do it, but we've got to do it. So the act of defining or making something definite, which is not going to be distinct, which is not going to be clear, getting there sometimes, as Joyce was saying. So like we need a better definition of her responsibilities, or the formal statement of the meaning or significance of a word, phrase, idiom, as found in dictionaries, which I guess there will be a dictionary definition of digital humanities, but here's the thing. I never found the end-all, be-all definition of digital humanities, as Lonnie was saying, and I really have stopped looking. Everybody's going to offer one, and those versions are going to be ones that will serve their collections, and they're useful, I think. But are really, you know, even if there's a perfect change my life definition of digital humanities out there, I'm not going to break a sweat scrambling for it, because I think that finding the right all-purpose, immutable definition of digital humanities isn't going to change my relationship with the digital humanities. I think what does that, and this is what we're doing in this class, is exposure, as you guys are presenting these digital humanities projects, that kind of stuff will, because, you know, you're seeing the different directions it can go. Exposure to new ways of understanding relationships between the humanities and the digital. So my recommendation for you guys is to set aside, if you are still, you're searching for the right definition, or if you're continue doing, as Joyce was doing, basically just bringing these threads together, and as you're deepening, getting further clarity, because that is something that definitely helps me with these new definitions, is I'm looking for ways that they actually speak to one another to deepen my understanding of the digital humanities, rather than do a lot of conflicting with one another. So, yeah.
I think one thing that complicated for me was in the digital emergence book was when it describes it as recursive and a two-way exchange. And so that kind of, like, we're not heading to it, we're continually revisiting. And so I think that complicated a little bit just from me.
Yeah.
That word recursive, I had to like, you know, like you can't just put it out there and be done with it. You know, it's gotta live. And there's a two-way, like its own entity. You know, I don't know.
Yeah,
That word
yeah.
complicated my definition, and what I thought was going to be my definition.
Well, that could just be maintenance. Like you're learning from it as the user, and the person who made it has to keep adapting it based on technology or definitions or things they want to build.
But it could be even more uptake, like what Bob was saying. You know, is there this really cool thing on this site? No, Katie says it's not. So that's an uptake that might be some recursiveness. The heavy collaborative nature of it, the fact that any digital humanities project that we put out there, unlike a publication like an academic publication, is taken up in our own pieces that are, you know, identify the scholarly conversation, and then we cite them, and right. But that's the only way we use them, right? We don't take them up and remake them.
Right, but I don't know. I just had that, like I said, in my head, the going down this road, and there we are plowing away.
Yeah.
So that recursive just kind of messed that.
So with the
Yes.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's very helpful. So just looking at these just seemingly infinite variety of ways that digital humanities changes the way we understand the human experience, and to share our stories with others, and how to share our stories with others, and how sharing those stories in these new ways make us come up with new ideas that we didn't have before, that they didn't have before, and that we're just smarter together. And there we go. But that said, when we talk about digital humanities definitions, it's a little bit more. So again, this is from doing the digital humanities. They call it the intersection of computational methods and humanities scholarship with a methodological commitment to thinking and theorizing through making. And that maker culture is something that Jones talks about a lot. In the emergence of the digital humanities, though, Jones isn't really interested in talking about how to do the digital humanities like the editors are talking about doing the digital humanities, or even examining the debates in the digital humanities, like the ones that we looked at together through your rhetorical précis by that name, Debates in the Digital Humanities. Like the people who doing the digital humanities, Moretti wants to know what the digital humanities can do for him and for us and for our understanding of literary history. So he definitely fits in that definition around which doing the DH is organized. His maps, graphs, and trees are all about leveraging that intersection of computational methods and humanities scholarship. But that's not really what the emergence of the digital humanities is about. It is, like other texts, it does address computational methods and humanities scholarship, sort of. And it also treats computational methods and humanities scholarship with methodological commitment to thinking and theorizing through making, but in a very, very different way. The big difference is the role played by that metaphor he calls the emergence of, he's looking at new relationships among dimensions, people, places, things, everything listed in our table of contents, since our consensual hallucination of a separate empty cyberspace turned itself inside out. The version, that's their version. And for Jones, he says at some point, and I think maybe this might be one of my favorites. This is something that I go back to a lot. There are several people who say it. The digital humanities is not a method or a thing so much as it is sort of a situation, an event space or tool. An event space I like particularly because that means that the Shakespeare project, for example, is not the thing so much as it is whatever it is when we're interacting with it. That's the thing that it is. And the thing that makes a digital humanities project is the interaction with it. Otherwise, it's just this dormant piece of text, like any text that sits out there. If it's not read, it doesn't mean anything. So he says that on page 39, and then on 79, and I think that might be the chapter on people, he says, I really love this. One of the roles of the new digital humanities, and he keeps talking about the new digital humanities in our present moment, might be to help us all learn new ways of to see some of these hitherto unseen but always present dimensions of mixed reality existence, the people, places, and things, opened up by the conjunctions of the digital and the physical. So we talked a lot already about the emergence, and going back to definitions, the process of coming into view or becoming exposed after being concealed. Some blogs that in some of your blog posts, you guys were talking about, okay, is this new or is it not, or what? And in this case, the emergence, it is there, but it's coming into view, and it's coming into view because of the technology that's available, and it has been maybe concealed because we didn't have the kinds of technology that he's working with.
or it's in a process of becoming important and prominent. That's certainly what we see the digital humanities doing. But what he's looking at is not just the tools, not just the methods, not just what these things can do to the data that we can't see unless we use these different kinds of approaches. But he looks at that cultural shift that makes this new phase of digital humanities possible, this phase in which NEH has begun funding digital humanities projects that universities are increasingly funding, and one of our missions in our doctoral program is two things: social justice and digital humanities. So we're doing a search for a new replacement for Donna right now. They're going to be coming in a couple of weeks. They're so good. At the center of Jones's approach is that assistance on the cultural shift that makes it possible. He is, so he's really about like the materiality that is the mashing of the computing power and the concerns that drive the humanities. And we'll break in just a minute. That's like, so this like meat sack in room 103 in the Ed South building and here on our campus on the 21st day of February in 2009 at 8:27 o'clock. This meat sack and these in this room networked with, where are you right now, Jennifer?
Actually, your voice just sounded like a robot. Did anybody else hear that?
She knows.
Yeah, she knows.
Like the very last sentence you just said, like went into this, like crazy robot sound. What were you saying right then?
I said, where are you right now physically?
Oh, I am in Huntsville, Texas.
Okay. What about you, Greg?
I'm over in Quitman, Texas.
Okay. And Katie?
Crossroads, Texas.
Crossroads. How about you, Peter? Yeah.
Oh, Dallas.
Oh, Dallas. Okay. What about you, Bob?
Dallas as well.
Okay. Abigail?
I'm actually in West Monroe, Louisiana.
That's our Louisiana. Wonderful. And Lonnie, how about you?
Seconds. The metropolis of Canton, Texas.
Yeah, the huge metropolis of Canton, Texas. So the network is like where, we're all connected. He says the network is the people, so there isn't a network unless we're all linked up physically, and you guys digitally, you guys physically where you are, and us now digital to you, and also us all digital to the people in the future who watch this when it's recorded, the inversion. So let's take a little break, and then we'll come back and we'll watch some Wreck-It Ralph, and then we will move on to talk about graphs, maps, and trees. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and get started. So he talks some about, first, we're not going to have time to get to these, but I really, really strongly recommend them. For example, Peter, it's very funny, very interesting, and also the first time that, we haven't spoken about privacy yet. And he's also talking about the history of the phone and his uncle with his clunky phone that he turned off in the 80s or early 90s. And then I love There's a Place for a Thing. So check these out. There's some good things to respond to, I think. But you can also respond to these before the class things and image and everything else. Okay, who's seen or read Ready Player One? I think I want to get to Wreck-It Ralph, but there are two really useful things I think about Ready Player One, and some of which he's already explained. But
my name's Wade Watts.
Let's go ahead and watch
this. My dad picked that name because it sounded like a superhero's alter ego, like Peter Parker or Bruce Banner. But he died when I was a kid. My mom too. And I ended up here. Sitting here in my tiny corner of nowhere. There's nowhere left to go. Nowhere. Except the Oasis. A whole virtual universe. People come to the Oasis for all the things they can do. They stay because of all the things they can be.
Can you feel this?
Yeah. The only place that feels like I mean anything. The Oasis was the brainchild of James Halliday. Hello. If you're watching this, I'm dead. I created a hidden object, an Easter egg. The first person to find the egg will inherit $500 billion and total control of the Oasis itself.
Who is this Parzival? And how the hell is he winning?
Find him. This is just a game. I'm talking about actual life and death stuff.
The Oasis, the world's most important economic resource. And it's nothing less than a war for control of the future.
Welcome to the rebellion, Wade.
Like many of you, I only came here to escape. But I found something much bigger than just myself. Are you willing to fight?
Let's save the Oasis.
I have Iron Giant, one of my favorite movies. Okay.
My name's Wade Watt.
Okay, I'm sorry, Wade. Okay, so in that we have a different kind of relationship with the virtual than I think the one that the Inside Out one that Jones is talking about. He says this is the chapter on places, and page 105. He's talking about Klein's book. He says not only is Ready Player One overloaded with references to 1980s pop culture, which makes me feel at home, it also feels oddly like a wistful celebration, one last full-on representation of the old ideal of cyberspace, or the metaverse, the lawless frontier where people access the 3D online world using goggles and haptic gloves and suits, living through their avatars in a kind of post-human virtuality that seems better than the degraded real world. But then, of course, the question is, like, what the hell is the real world? So in cyberspace, it's something that's in direct opposition with the real. Several of you guys have spoken about other pop culture artifacts that have that same tension. Like they're entirely different spaces. You go into the Oasis, and you can. But then the question is like in this thing, like in this, if the network is people, and then where is the place in which we live the real life is, again, our meat sack, the physical body, the thingness of our material world. And that Oasis is supposed to be the respite from everything else, this isolated area in which one cannot, he says, live one's full life because one needs to live one in the real world. But the question, like right now, is what is real? Because unless we entirely take ourselves totally off the grid, we're in it, and you got to work hard in the first world situation when you have the money and these kinds of things that Jones doesn't talk about. So looking at the definition of the virtual, which is what this Oasis is supposed to be, specifically like virtual reality, not quite reality, almost or merely as described, but not completely or according to strict definition. And then in computing, not physically existing as such, but made by software to appear to do so, carried out, accessed, or stored by means of a computer, especially over a network. So the world itself is not considered part of the Oasis, and that Oasis is, of course, a corporate product with these clear boundaries defined by capitalism and ownership, and he's going to get that Easter egg, and the winner of the Easter egg gets the company, and he's going to do benevolent things with the company because he's a good guy, thank goodness. He says, Ernest Cline is very clear that dystopian world, the one that I think I'm in right now, that you guys probably believe you're in right now, that is the real one. He says that the protagonist, the world in which I spent my days, the Oasis, was not in fact the real one.
think about that differentiation, and then I'm going to move on to this wine bottle. So Jones insists that the here is there and the there is here. So you guys we're all in this together, and that's that a version of cyberspace. So where in the oasis or virtual reality of Ready Player One becomes a real inextricable part of the physical, and vice versa. You can't unplug. I mean, you can, but you can't live life on normal terms, the ways in which it's been constructed for our everyday work. But Jones says that computers create the illusion of immateriality, even in situations like Ready Player One. So it's incumbent upon the digital humanist, he says, not just to reveal that illusion for what it is, but to reveal, and this is his project, the thingness of the digital, and to interpret the effects of the illusion in a cultural context. So we all have this consensual illusion. Okay, then what does it mean? What's this about? I mean, that's humanities, and that's his object is video games. He's looking at that. So that quote's on page 131 in the Things chapter. So Jones suggested objects, things shape human experiences, just as human experience shapes things. And we haven't spoken about things, not in this way. So going back to that the things quote, does anybody know about this? I don't know why we saw this bottle, this 19 crimes, 19 wines, 19 crimes. What do you know about it, Bob?
Apparently, just like put your phone over it and it gives you the background story on the murder.
Yes. So they're all. I have a. Do I have one here? Where is it? Yeah, I have this little ad. Let's see, 125. Watch these. Let's see. It'll show it. I mean, she talks for a little bit.
Of the American Revolution, England.
So like it's the 90s.
I'm gonna
pay
homage to the 19 crimes that were punishable by transportation. According to the 19 Crimes website, although many prisoners died on the journey from Australia to Australia, those who did survive built a new country. As the website says, this wine celebrates the rules and the culture that they. These are. I only have a few. This label bears the real image of one of those men or women exiled to Australia. Each of the corks also features one of the 19 crimes. The really cool thing, though, is that each of these prisoners will tell you his or her own story. Don't believe me? Just watch. For the sake of my children, I beg for mercy.
Notice that her lips are moving. Pretty cool.
Sentenced to 7 years, transported for stealing bacon. The company created a branded app that uses augmented reality to make each label come to life. The remarkable thing is that the app is so responsive and seamless. The labels appear worn, which I think complements the story of the prisoners. Contrasted on the dark glazed glass, they really stand out. We've seen augmented reality on beer and wine labels before, but not like this. There is no load time, and the images seem to come to life, and the graphics are spot on. The only downside is that you have to download a specific app from 19 Crimes. It doesn't work with other augmented reality apps.
Oh, I don't know what it tastes like, but but you know. Anyway, so fans make digital media or digital humanities. Academics make digital humanities projects, and corporate America makes digital humanities projects. That 19 Wines project is 100% the digital humanities project. So where is virtual space for 19 Wines? And where is physical space?
Tells the app to do that.
That's the real, that's the virtual, the processing.
I'm trying to think of how that would even work. That's mind-blowing.
I agree, it's a software. Go ahead, Greg.
I'm having trouble hearing them talk in the audience there.
Okay. Joyce and Brian are suggesting that the answer might be the virtual is the software that does the processing that makes the bottle talk. So not the bottle. That's
hardware.
I'm sorry.
Now that's hardware. The bottle's now hardware.
The bottle is now hardware. Nice. Okay.
Hardware is anything you can touch. That's why I got mad at Jones, because everything he listed in here was hardware. The floppy, the game controllers, it's the software that matters. That's what does, that's what makes the label, which would be hardware, move. That's the program that makes it animate.
Yeah, yeah. What do you guys think over there? Where's the virtual? Does this, this idea of the processing part being the virtual make sense?
I think that the virtual lies in the fact that those people aren't alive anymore, but we're hearing their stories, and it's like they're talking to us, but really they're not. But virtually they are. I think that's the virtual part. They're there, but they're not there.
Okay. All right. That's so interesting. So the bottle is the hardware. The software is the virtual that is running, but the fact that the past is talking to us is the virtual as well. Like, not, so it is virtual reality as though we were time traveling, or as though we were doing some seance or something. That's interesting. That's really interesting. So that's the aversion, right? Well, what's not the aversion is some bad decisions that companies have made as they were trying to figure out what was going to come. So he's talking mainly, about, the advent of Facebook and Google Earth and all of those kinds of things. Well, they're anticipating what that kind of thing might be before we had this inversion happening, when the virtual and the physical had different kind of relationship, and they were trying to force one where it wasn't organic. So, for example, in the 90s, my husband went to go buy a VCR, and the old joke is that it's always flashing 12 because nobody knows how to program it. Well, their solution was to have like a barcode reader and a book, a big thick book full of barcodes that you could scan and have your VCR do the things that's how you program it, is you just scan these barcodes. So if you lose the book, I don't know what you do. You definitely have a flashing 12. And also, VCRs were, DVDs were in the world at that point. So, they try these things. But the other thing is, and this is, anybody use Waze? It's a crowdsourced, it's really a good,
it's directions.
Directions, yeah. If you're doing, it's not so good in country areas, so I can't use it so much here, but in Dallas and Kenny and everywhere, because it's crowdsourced and you can find out where the cops are and where, and then they'll route you around stuff. But it's free to me, except that it's, everything's marketed. My movements are marketed. And so when I'm at the intersection, you get advertisements. And the advertisements are so smart. They're not just necessarily, the 7-Eleven is right there. Ad for 7-Eleven. Why don't you get a hot dog? It's on sale. No, they'll actually do things like, I'm on the corner of Market Street is right there, and an ad for Kroger pops up. So, and there's also other kind of interesting rival things going on. Like, I've heard that you can download a Burger King app that if you are in a parking lot of McDonald's, you can trigger this app that will allow you to buy a $1 burger at Burger King. So go to McDonald's and then trigger your app, and then you can have a $1 burger. So they can steal their customers. So even though it's inconvenient to go to the Burger King, which is going to be across the street because it always is, then take that, McDonald's.
That's basically my new life plan. So thanks for that.
Oh, and the kids can play on the equipment, and then
Stop crawling on me for 5 seconds.
So Jones says the network is people. He keeps saying that. Wreck-It Ralph. Who's seen Wreck-It Ralph? Okay. Have you seen 2 as well? Yeah. So much fun. So
in this, the 2012 film, Ralph, same character in the one that's in theaters now, or maybe it's out of theaters right now. For some reason, Wreck-It Ralph 2 is called Ralph Breaks the Internet, which is just infuriating because why is it not Ralph Wrecks the Internet? Yeah, just makes me crazy. But he's this computer-generated character, is like a modern, like a Donkey Kong thing, and in the first one, the story takes place in a network that doesn't seem to involve any people at all. It's just the game characters are networked together, and somehow they can go into each other's games, and people can hang out at Wreck-It Ralph's like crumbling building, or they can go to the bar where the thing is, they drink and the beers, and they have burping contests and so forth. And so, I mean, I guess if we're thinking about it in terms of Ready Player One, this is like the space where the characters who are not gamers hang out and interact. Like, I mean, but there are no people there, and the arcade games function so differently. What's that?
They're NPCs. They're non-player characters.
Non-player characters.
They're the ones that you talk to that are all synthetic. There's no person behind that.
And that's the one that runs the narrative in the more current computers, or more current games, I think. Often they seem to like, what do you want to do next? But so then what are they called?
Non-player character.
Non-player character. Okay, so Wreck-It Ralph is a non-player character during the time that the arcade is shut, and he's hanging out with everybody else who is a player character because they're Pac-Man or whatever. But in the second one, they are right now at this one. There's no network, no digital, Wi-Fi, cellular tower, satellite enabled, anything. So what space are they inhabiting? Is it cyberspace? And then in 2, the first film's connected. They connect to the internet because they need a part in order for her to continue to exist in her game. And so that's the part where they begin to connect with people. Anyway, it just raises so many interesting questions. So here's the first one, just for those of you guys who aren't familiar with it, you can get a feel for what it's like in this space that we're thinking of in terms of, not in terms of the 19 bottles, but in terms of Ready Player One.
My name's Wreck-It Ralph. 30 years I've been doing this.
I can fix it!
It's hard to love your job when no one else seems to like you for doing it.
You're just the bad guy who wrecks the building.
I'm okay. If I'm really honest with myself, it sure must be nice being the good guy.
Ralph, you are a bad guy, but this does not mean you're a bad guy.
I don't want to be the bad guy anymore.
Ralph abandoned his game.
Welcome to Game Central Station.
Bad guy coming.
Everything changes now.
Where's Ralph?
Sorry, Hubert. It's me, Ralph.
Ralph's gone to hero's duty? Fear is a 4-letter word, ladies. You want to go pee-pee in your big boy slacks, keep it to yourself.
Hi, mister. You're not from here, are you?
Sugar Rush? You're game jumping? Hey!
Aha! You wouldn't hit a guy with glasses, would you? Aha! You hit a guy with glasses. That's well played. Without Ralph, we're doomed. They're gonna pull our plug.
What's that?
A medal. I earned it in hero's duty. It's not that kind of duty.
I bet you really gotta watch where you step in a game called Hero's Duty.
Some nights I stay up, cashing in my bag.
We can't change who we are.
You can't mess with the program, Ralph. Some nights I win.
Everyone here says I'm just a mistake.
You ready for this?
What do I stand for?
I'm not leaving you here alone.
Well, let's close out with the bad guy affirmation. I am bad. Now that's good. I will never be good. No, and that's not bad. Hold that thought. There's no one I'd rather be than me. Hey! till I fix everything I touch.
It's make your mama's proud time.
I love my mama. Oh, good. The cops. Hold still. Ow! Take that. What are you doing?
One game at a time, Ralph.
So the game takes place, I'm sorry, the movie takes place largely during, mostly during the time that the arcade is shut. And during that time they can ship, they change around into different games. Their portals seem to be connected through the foot that everybody's plugged into. So the way that they disconnect the network is to unplug one another, and they're not connected to anybody else except one another in that room. But then in Wreck-It Ralph 2, we have the internet, and I think it's helpful to talk about in terms of like 19
Way to go, kid.
1 second, I'm having the time of my life. The next thing I know, my game is just gone.
Hello, let me tell you what it's like. Sugar Rush is getting unplugged.
Oh no, I'm freaking out hard.
If I'm not a racer, what am I?
Oh, you're my best friend. All we gotta do is find a part to fix your game. Everything goes back to the way it was.
But where are we gonna find that?
The internet.
What?
No, it is not!
Get my geek on. Wow. Get my geek on.
Get rid of belly fat using this one weird trick.
Sassy housewives want to meet you.
They do.
Want to get rich playing video games? Slaughter Race. He's wicked dangerous.
Oh, yep, I'm out of that code. It was a one, but it was an O. Oh, nice kitty. Nice kitty. Nah, attention to detail is pretty impressive.
Well, well, well. Who are you?
I think we should get out of here.
Whoa.
Showtime. Let's race.
Come and get it.
Get back on the track.
There is no track. I can drive anywhere. I love it here.
Who knew there's so many babies and cats in the world?
That is what the internet was made for. It's full of weirdos. I want this to be my life. I don't think I could ever tell Ralph.
There's no law saying best friends have to have the same dreams.
This is what's called the dark net.
Are you sure this is safe?
Just whatever you do not look at his little brother.
Oh, his little brother?
What are you doing here?
The reason I came to your neck of the face. I mean, there's a face in your neck. I mean, woods. Neck of the woods. 3, 2.
Okay. All right. So thinking in terms of the aversion and dimensions and people and places and things, where are the people in Wreck-It Ralph 1? And or if you see them more quickly, where are the people in Wreck-It Ralph 2? If it's a network of people.
Someplace. That's the internet.
Yeah. So do you? What's some evidence that you saw of people? I mean, did you see any people?
Like the girl driving the car.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So people who exist on the other side of the glass. Thinking in Gibson's terms, this would be that they can't get into the game. And so what do you guys say? Where are the people? If the network is people, where do you see people?
Well, you saw the people playing in Wreck-It Ralph 2, like playing the game that was broken. Or do you mean like in the game?
Yeah, both. Because if the network is people and he's in the network, he's gone through the Wi-Fi router, and they're in the internet now. And we have around the Sugar Crush character some characters who have names hovering over them and some who don't. So what does that mean, Brian?
It's a person.
Okay.
A person's avatar, whatever, name over the top of it.
So a person's playing that character. So there's a person that has created the network, and that those non-player game or characters would have no reason for being if that character who was a person wasn't there. Where else are people? Now, don't just think about the game, but think about the world that they're populating. They go to Wikipedia. They spend some time in eBay. We're looking at YouTube videos. We see Facebook. Where are the people? Where's evidence of the people?
I don't know. I think this would fit here, but I haven't actually seen Wreck-It Ralph 2, but I know that Miranda Sings is one of the characters in it, and I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she is like a character from YouTube, so it's not actually a person, it's a character of a person who's on YouTube, and she's like become a character in that.
That's a version, if anything is. That's interesting.
So it's like layers. She's not even a real person, and like offline in our reality, I don't know. Miranda Sings, the character, is a New York Times bestselling author. Like, she has books published under the character name. So that's another, like...
Mind blown. It's nothing you can point to. Let's see. Okay, I think this will be helpful in terms of finding the people. Oops, what do I have to do this for? No, skip.
I think that Sandy waxes. That does not just happen, Ralph. That is a choice.
You're totally right, kid. Timber.
Ew, gross.
Help! Hey, John! Johnny! Watch this. Home run!
That's a plug-in alert. Litwak hasn't plugged in a new game.
Wi-Fi? Wi-Fi? That sign right there says Wi-Fi. What it should say is Sky-Fi.
Figures. Finally get something new plugged in, and we're not even allowed to go in there. Come on, Nafisa. Let's play Sugar Rush.
Wants a new track? I'll give her a new track.
Pick Penelope, Swatty. She's got the best superpower. Yeah, the glitch. Just think of me as plain old Penelope, the racer who's about to kick your butt. Ooh, 1, 2, 3 dumbbells. Right on
She's gonna love this.
Take this track. Rock, you old son of a gun. Awesome! Hey, thanks, Ralph!
You're welcome!
No. We have a situation. Mr. Litwack?
All right. On you. Oh. Okay. Are you kidding? How much? That's more than this game makes in a year.
Oh, what are we gonna do? I'm sorry, I know I'm being weird.
I suppose that large green olive will fit in nicely with my decor.
I'm a sour ball.
We're like adorable.
You sure are. So, any takers?
Felix and I will give them sanctuary.
There you are. Oh. Hey, Ralph. Hey, Felix.
Oh, hey, oh boy.
Oh, what is wrong with you?
Gremlin, stay away, it's a gremlin.
It looks like a tiny Mr. Litwack. Looking for eBay.
Hey, oh boy.
Yeah, boy. Yo, boy.
Yeah, boy.
Talking about eBay.
Ralph, what is wrong with you? Hello? We're looking for eBay.
You hear that, kid? Ah, that's a gremlin. Stay away, it's a gremlin.
It looks like a tiny Mr. Litwack.
Yeah!
Holy cow! Look at all this stuff.
Whoa.
Oh, look at that little egg guy. He's got on one of those hats that smart people wear. I bet he could help.
Umbrella, umbrage, umami, umathermos.
No.
Noah's Ark, no doubt. No, well, you're welcome.
Redirecting to eBay.
Superstar Beyonce Knowles goes for 400.
Yay! So happy. 310. 315. 320.
325.
Oh man, this guy's good. 15,000.
15,000? You are here 15.5. And sold for 27,001 to the barefoot hobo in the broken overall.
A credit card number.
Number, right. 7.
So this big galoo, he left his wallet at home?
Yeah. What a scam! We were so close, and we wanted to.
And we blew our chance to get it. We blew it.
Hey, calm down.
What the heck? The internet?
Earn a little bit of moolah.
We're video game characters, Ralph. We don't have moolah.
Click right here to find out how. Back off, Papa. Right this way. I'll take you to my website. Good! Look.
They've got to steal his car.
Department of Noise.
Sorry.
Oh no. Hey, bottom is stuck. And so does this mean we can keep your car?
Absolutely not.
What's the point? I'm gonna wreck it! God!
If you ever want to come back,
A little bit more.
I'd be happy to kick your butt again.
I did.
Hello, mister.
Who are you?
I'm your friendly eBay alert messenger.
Are you the head of Al Gore?
I am the head algorithm.
That's 1.3 million hearts.
Well,
She is not. I'm the cool one getting all the hearts.
you are trending, and these are for you. Hearts, cards, oh, hearts are money, honey. Your Buzzy account converts hearts into dollars. Well, I hate to say it, but that ain't happening. Your video's tapped out.
As usual, human suffering is number 1, followed by hot pepper eating challenges.
We'll see about that. That's not so. Oh, it's very hot. And that, my friends, is how you achieve the perfect cat eye.
Cloud, a little friend. Want the treat.
Hi. Have a little whiff of this here.
I need you out there popping up and getting clicks all over the internet.
It's my game we're trying to save. I just...
Okay, so where's the virtual? Where are the people? Where are the things? People, things, places.
So before you played this one, after you played the ones earlier, I was thinking that, you know, whoever put his head on the donkey body, that's somebody doing that remix, mashup, or whatever you call that thing, where they, you know, take your video and then make it into something funny or dumb or worse, and then the people that were emailing him, you know, like SEXY ladies want to be your wife or whatever. You know, like I know those are like robot emails, but there are people on the other ends of all these things. People making these videos, people that want you to click on their emails to steal your money or give you a virus or whatever.
Excellent. What else?
That algorithm lady that you see near the end right here that was offering him money, that's probably the most iconic character because she's like a symbol of like the digital world moving forward, and she tells him what's cool and what's not cool, and it's interesting because her outfits and her hairstyle changes, and it's just still one day, you know, and every time they see her, she looks different. And she tells them, okay, your video is not cool anymore. You got to move on to this or that. So she's, you know, I think she's the most like noticeable and like symbolic of all the characters, you know, because she is the internet almost, you know.
She is because by functioning as the zeros and ones that algorithm that processes what people like and what they don't like, she's the one who can make those just judgments about what's cool and what's not, what's going to make the money. So yeah, she's literally the virtual in the same way that the software that runs the augmented reality thing that on the bottles. I don't know. What else?
The little people giving the hearts, they all kind of look the same, like minion looking.
Mm-hmm. So who would, how would those hearts happen?
So the people liking something.
Okay, so in just humans in the world.
Humans out there liking a video, the more hearts it like, the more trending it will be.
Yeah.
Like likes on YouTube or Twitter. Or
right. What else? Where's the virtual?
When they were talking about the money, I was thinking about Bitcoin. You know, like he was wanting money so he could buy something, and he can't have money, character or whatever. And I'm going to throw in the Bitcoin thing, which I still actually can't wrap my head around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, he does go to the dark web where there are also people running a different series of things where they try to keep currency that exists only within digital spaces, does not exist outside of that. So entirely virtual currency that actually has value that they can exchange without going out into the world to do things out in the world.
Value that as a person, because the paper money we use only has value because people say it does.
Good point.
Faith in it, so that's
virtual.
People's interaction with a virtual thing.
That's interesting. The eBay bot who comes up and reminds him that he still has that thing that he needs to buy. Yeah, little messenger that pops up.
And the guy that he's against for the eBay.
What's that?
And the guy that he's bidding against for the eBay.
Oh yeah, that's person for sure. Yeah, unless they have set up a bot to do the automatic bid thing, in which case there's still a person behind it because they queued that up.
The little taxi guy that said, "I'll take you to my website." There's a person behind his website.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of what Joan says about the aversion, how do we see this aversion at work, and I mean, how would Jones describe what we see here?
We're looking at it from the other direction. So we only see what we're doing. We look at this side of the screen, and through this we're seeing, although not real, obviously, but the other side of the game, or the inside.
At the same time, he argues there isn't a place that's separate that he can be in, which is interesting. So does this work, except that we can see the people that make the thing that wouldn't exist unless the people were networked and have built the programs upon which it ran.
If you're thinking about those things, and normally we're like click.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think, Abigail?
Well, when I watched it, I really thought the people that were colored were kind of just algorithms, and then the square people were actual people. So I saw a bit more of a divide between the technology and the real world.
Interesting. Okay. That's really interesting. Okay, just a couple more things about aversion and the emergence of digital humanities. And oops.
There's a ubiquity aspect to it, though. He talked about GPS being indistinguishable from the internet, from our phones. In the way we go shopping, if everybody goes to eBay, if everybody goes to Amazon, which is not a physical place, shopping doesn't mean what it used to anymore. something like that
Mhm.
might be
Mhm.
something Jones might argue.
I think so.
But it is about money, so maybe he would have left it out.
Anything else? I mean, we have, where are the things, as Jones defines them in this clip? What do you think, Greg? Where are the things?
Well, it's kind of a tough question, I think.
It's a hard question, sorry.
If I were, I may popcorn that out to someone. I don't know. I see some of the teachers smiling at that.
Well, okay, what about this room? Where are the things?
You get like a few glimpses from in the physical world, like someone at their laptop punching the button when it doesn't work right, like, oh, the internet's down, you know, and you see their laptop, I guess, would be one of the things. And the guy at the office who's just like bored and looking for a laugh during, you know, work time. Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
The steering wheel.
Steering wheel, absolutely.
They're trying to buy that.
Yeah.
Video game machine.
The cord, plug it up. Breaks the entire network.
The coins they put in the machine.
Just starts the world.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the electricity is a thing, sure. The cables that carry the Wi-Fi is a thing. The router that he put in to connect them to the internet is a thing.
I think it focuses a lot on just really pointing out the relationships that we have with electronics and I guess the digital spaces that are out there that, you know, no one really thinks about.
Absolutely. So I guess last person I'll pick on is maybe, hey Peter, we haven't spoken about places. Where are the places that are involved as Jones would describe them in this clip from Wreck-It Ralph? We have the arcade, that's a place. And I think we have the office, I guess.
Was that little guy with the hat supposed to be like a search engine?
Yeah, he's a Wikipedia.
Okay,
yeah.
Because it was doing auto predict when you started.
Yeah, that's why I
filling
thought
in
searching, because you start typing in and things automatically.
And I would think that the algorithms that run like Wikipedia, he's trying to predict the search would be definitely a thing. But there are like is there a place within this? I mean, you could map it in terms of that. What do you think, Peter? I don't know how to answer this question. I'm just throwing it at you.
I don't know. That's interesting. It's not something I've given a lot of thought to.
Okay. So go ahead.
What about like unseen places like, you know, where they have like the cloud storage?
Yeah. Is eBay a place? I mean, it seems to be represented as a place, right? There is a place that they go to heart things, and a place that they go to retrieve things, and there is an actual dark web that they actually travel to. So there's a place in that sense. What's that?
Video game, like it's not Candy Crush, whatever the driver.
Sugar, yeah.
Silverman's character.
Yeah.
Where like that is a place that you're watching her go.
Yeah.
The roads.
Yeah.
Probably mappable too.
Yes, in Moretti's terms for sure. And yes.
Reverse.
What's that?
But in reverse. You can't. You map a physical location because it's immutable. Like this is what the continent looks like. But a computer map has to go in reverse. You have to set parameters and boundaries and work your way smaller. So it's
you're using the data to build the space that you're then going to represent. I mean, it's a representative space in the first place, and then you're going to represent that representation. It's made of data at first.
How big it is, you say how big it is, and then that it is that big.
Right, because it's
find out how big the place is.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, talk about Minecraft. He does talk about Minecraft.
Yeah, I haven't personally played it. My kids played it forever. Building, like there's nothing, and then you start adding things and making these crazy worlds. It's, the graphics, I was surprised when they first came out, the kids were like really into the time, because this was all pixels, like giant pixelated stuff, and it was a big thing. I don't think it's really a thing anymore. I don't remember too much.
They move on to something.
Fortnite now.
It's all Fortnite apparently.
Replicas of real, they're still there.
They're still
Everyone
there.
else is moved
Yeah.
on.
Well, that's the Second Life phenomena too that we'll talk about next time. But well, I guess the final thing I want to say is that if we're talking about, you know, Jones's terms, the subversion, the fact that the network is people that there's this interdimensionality that we can't get out of it, which goes back to that 19 Wines thing, as Daniel was saying, I think it was Daniel, or several of you guys said this, and this is the recursiveness of the Digital Humanities Project, that the thing that is the digital humanities is the network between the person, the place, and the thing, and their connection. I mean, as Brian was saying, that wine bottle has become hardware in that interaction, and that's the point at which it's the Digital Humanities Project. And when it's pulling from the past, as Lonnie was saying, and bringing a story forward, that's the Digital Humanities. This game is, by looking at it this way, Digital Humanities. It doesn't function necessarily that way necessarily, but these are stories about the human condition and how we live life, and how we live life amongst things, and how things change the way we live our lives. Yeah.
I gotta throw this out. There was a game some years ago where you make your character, which is not an uncommon thing. You design your character, you know, you pick the sex, you know what they're gonna do, and you make a second character called a pawn that followed you around and fought things with you, but it was computer controlled. When you weren't playing, other people had the option to recruit additional pawns. You make a party of 4. So your character, not your main one, your side, your lackey, would run in other people's parties while your console was off and you were at work. And if that happened and your character that you made did a good job, when the person if I borrowed Daniel's character that he made because I needed, you know, someone with a bow and Daniel's character, and he made a good character with a bow, I would give his character an item from my inventory when I stopped playing. So then when Daniel would get home from work, he would turn it on and he would go to play, and his pawn would give him something that it had earned while he was at work.
Wow. Boom. because then it
still lived.
It still lived, and it's creating things, that then get passed on from the virtual, created alongside the people who were networked while you weren't networked, and then fascinating. What if he dies while he's hanging out with these guys?
Wasn't that something that you could do in World of Warcraft?
They don't really do.
Okay.
Couldn't you do something like that in World of Warcraft? Like you could get a character to a certain level and sell it. And
Yeah.
earn you money, and my brother and he played that.
That was a
You can sell the people, you can sell the weapons, you can sell all sorts of things. Okay, we'll stop there, and then and so let's talk about Moretti. Several of you guys have rhetorical précis, so let's go ahead and move on to Moretti, and then we can push him out of our lives. I mean, he'll still be here because everybody references him. But yeah. Yes, go ahead, Daniel.
Mine's from, I guess everybody's is from the reading the Grass, Maps, and Trees, but I chose Sean McCain, and his was a few quibbles about Moretti's Grass, Maps, and Trees. So my précis, I wrote, in his essay, A Few Quibbles About Moretti's Grass, Maps, and Trees, Sean McCain argues that Moretti does not create a new methodology of literacy criticism through his text, because only Moretti is capable of doing what it is we see in Grass, Maps, and Trees. McCain states that Moretti is form-centric, and that his statement of deducing is at odds with processes related to evolutionary biology. McCain gives the example of how collecting publication history would entail collecting a wide span of information, whereas Moretti only focuses on a few factors. McCann also points out that Moretti is making 3 assumptions about literary forms. 1, that the function of genre is to represent reality.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
And 2, the diversity, success, and failure of literary forms as the product of market selection. Mm-hmm. And 3, the influence of reader selection. Moretti also does not pay enough attention to how literature serves pedagogical, ideological, and status purposes. Finally, McCann states that Moretti gives us an either-or fallacy and asking us to think of culture as either diverging or converging. McCann, though he writes his article in a respectful academic tone, but in the form of a blog that points out what he likes about Moretti's text, but also give what he finds fault with. So he starts off positive, saying, okay, who doesn't like Moretti's text? It's great, it's brilliant, but he's got these flaws, these assumptions he makes. So I thought it was great, and it did seem like a blog, like what one of us would write, kind of venting about something.
Excellent.
I enjoyed it.
Nice. Okay, who else?
I did the Matthew Kirschenbaum's Poetry, Patterns, and Provocation, the NORA project. And I said that in his article, Kirschenbaum introduces how the NORA project, now the Monk project, is similar in many ways to graphs, maps, and trees. He points out that they both have an emphasis on quantitative methodology, large-scale data analysis, visualization, abstract modeling, cooperation, and collaboration. He ends his introduction by explaining that although the project name NORA is an acronym for no one remembers acronyms, the project is actually about provocations, ambiguity, interpretation, which is what most in the field would identify as central to academic literary studies. He then details what the project is actually doing, and in doing so, they're producing software for discovering, visualizing, exploring significant patterns across large collections of full text resources existing in digital libraries. He points out that much money has been spent creating digital library collections and have consequently presented an excellent opportunity for text mining tools to make those collections more useful and more rewarding for research and teach. He then details the steps needed to make this happen and adds that none of the architecture was in place when they began, so they had to create and troubleshoot to make it to the point where they are now. They had to discern what technologies were actually good for humanities research, and in particular, researching the literary studies. In other words, they had to determine what kinds of questions researchers would actually seek to know and work from there. They also had to establish new questions that might be helpful to researchers as they began working with the data mining. He goes on by giving examples of what resulted. For instance, he ascertains that through the text mining, scholars may be able to identify parts of text that contain aspects of sentimentalism in certain novels like Moby Dick or The Scarlet Letter, the Blithedale Romance, and Irving's The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass. And then he ends his article by explaining that those who are working on the project are not there to save the humanities. And he posits that graph, maps, and trees are not for everyone, and neither is data mining. There are, however, researchers who are interested in and receptive of the information, and he finalizes by saying he cautions scholars to be careful with the generalization assumptions that have been presented previously.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Greg. How about you, Joyce?
I did Distant Reading Minds. Stephen Willard Johnson, the chapter Distant Reading Minds, published in Reading, Graphs, Maps, and Trees, expresses his connection and appreciation for the work of Moretti, but at the same time questions the idea of merely mapping with a distant view of text. Johnson supports his explanation by sharing the work that he did with Moretti during research, which resulted in 2 books from Moretti and 1 important work for himself, which leads to the understanding of how this lens will be used not only to zoom out, but also how it will be used to zoom into the text and meaning. It's the thought process of the human mind. The author's purpose is to enlighten readers as to the importance of in order to, I'm using one there. So, in order to use so that they will see the implications and importance of mapping and graphing text, but also the necessity of taking a step further. The author was an academic term for scholars and literature.
Okay. Let's see. So what is the, okay, so how this lens will be used not only to zoom out, but also how it used to zoom into the text and meaning.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. In a way that fits the thought process of the human mind. What would that look like? Does he talk about what that would look like?
So he was just talking about, it was pretty short, so he
Okay.
didn't get into a lot, but he was just saying that he understood the reasoning behind it, and he appreciated that it was such a dense text and didn't take like a huge book to explain this theory and how it worked, but that his one wish is that it wasn't just like bird's eye view of everything.
Mm-hmm.
That we do have to take some guidance into
Yeah.
this. And that was the one thing that he hoped would be taken a step further from what was going on.
So the criticism is two bird's eye view, and then yours that it was, I had several things that were really interesting. Oh, he made some assumptions about how genres work that don't seem to hold water entirely.
And I thought the interesting thing was, I mean, he worked right alongside him during the making of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
He said, we were just emailing about this the other day, and this is what came of it. And so I understand where he's coming from, and I hope you enjoy his work and see the quality in it, but we have to dive into it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that was really, it wasn't just a random critic. It was someone who truly understood the motivation.
Sure, sure, sure.
So that was super interesting.
Okay. And then to get, so did you look at, I've never seen the Nora Project, Greg, have you?
No, ma'am. I just gleaned a little bit about it from what he was writing there.
So he's just saying that he is all about quantitative. He's all in. But is he just pointing out that there is another project that does what he's talking about?
Yes, ma'am. And he's I guess saying that I think that as he's going through there, he's being defensive really toward people who do some text mining, saying it's not for. Not everyone, not everyone's for it, but there is a large crowd out there that is interested in it.
Okay, so I'm doing it too. So yeah, I get it. That's good. Okay, I mean, I'm not doing it too. The guy who wrote that book or article is. Okay, so let's take the last few minutes then to put a bow, if we can, on Moretti. What is your takeaway? I mean, yeah, I guess what's your takeaway from this book? Both positive and also maybe less so. What do you think, Brian?
Well, I'm going to be in the minority with this. I liked graphs because with the little information each section gave, it made the most sense. And it's the only one that fit in maps, he says. You have to use, and I'm paraphrasing, you have to create something that communicates something that the text can't. And the only one that did that in a way I could understand, I'm not saying the others didn't do it beautifully, but I couldn't see it anywhere but in graphs.
Yeah.
In graphs, it was, these are, spans, this is popularity of literature, it's reception theory, it's got, you can draw different conclusions that you literally could never draw from text in a way I couldn't see that in maps or trees, which were useful to illustrate something, but I don't think it was anything you couldn't write a paper about with just words.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
I think part of that, I could kind of see that with maps though too, because when you're like visualizing something, like maybe there are character choices. Maybe it doesn't give us a historical reasoning, but maybe there are character choices that are made that you wouldn't think about without seeing like the physical spacing of their world or their village. And it might kind of explain, those character choices, just like the historical references would from the graphs, maybe.
Yeah, and I think in both as Marty says that both of them are about raising problems that they didn't know that they existed until they pulled the data out and started to do this bird's eye view. What were you going to say, Craig?
I was gonna almost touch on what Katie was saying there, but to go a little further, I guess I get to really reminiscent about the maps portion. I got excited as I read through there, and because I like to look at maps and travel and think about destinations, and I try to attribute that to what he was saying about, as you start plotting and looking to where. You just don't know where things are going to end up, and you have no idea what, as you're looking at that data, where it's going. So I kind of reminisced a little bit, got, excited about reading that part.
I love maps too. Yeah, I really do. Was there another rhetorical précis? Does anybody else have one? Lonnie. You have one too?
Okay. Actually, sorry. Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Mine, so week 4 is the week I just was like a no-show because my husband decided to take a grinder to the face. Went to the hospital.
How's he doing?
Yeah, he had to have surgery and stitches inside and outside, and he gets to go back to work on Tuesday, though, so it's been a couple weeks of, him being home and in my hair, but okay.
Yeah.
So, is it okay if I do that one? Because I didn't even post my week 6 one because I didn't know if I should, because I didn't do this one yet.
Well, go ahead and move forward with the other ones. I want to do, I think since we don't have that much time left, just do the reading graphs, maps, and trees ones. We can do yours next time. And so yeah, unless you have a reading graphs, maps, and trees one.
No, that's okay. I'll just wait. Sorry.
No, that's okay. It's okay. For those 8, though, if we don't get a chance to report back, we're gonna try to be able to do that each time. But they are up on in the rhetorical précis area, so you guys can see those. So the debates in the digital humanities will kind of put those to bed, and then move into the reading digital humanities. I'm sorry, what the hell is this? Reading graphs, maps, and trees. So Katie, did you have a précis?
I do. It's the same chapter that was just done, though. By
okay.
Joy.
Well, what do you have to add to that?
I think part of the reason that I chose that one, the distant reading minds, right? Distant reading minds. First, like she said, I thought it was interesting that he had a relationship with Moretti, and so he was just like, oh yeah, I just talked to him about this. Or yeah, we worked together on that. So I thought that was interesting, but sorry, let me pull up my little presentation notes because it's been a little while since I read it.
Some sleep.
I slept since then, and I'm on a lot of cough syrup. But I liked that he defended the text, but also said, like, there's a reason, or there's kind of a purpose to look at it in that direction, but looking in it this other direction with more like a close read instead of just that distant reading would maybe sometimes be more effective rather than just limiting it to plot points. If you could like dig deeper into it, that's not really as, I don't know, as effective with those strategies or whatever. And then the question that he asked was, how is the reader influenced by formal properties without being fully conscious of the influence? So like how are people, what did I say? How can the reader understand that they're reading a text that meets certain desired descriptors without realizing what those descriptors are? So how can they know that they're learning about a thing if they don't know what that thing is they're supposed to be learning about or noticing or whatever? So I liked that idea too.
Yeah, I do too. We have a few more minutes. Other takeaways from graphs, maps, and trees? I mean, you're gonna keep reading about it. Everybody talks about it.
I can see it being useful for like coding methods.
Okay, how
We were
so?
talking about that last period. because coding, you can take a distant view of the reading, where you're, depending on how you're coding it, because with graphs, maps, and trees, there's just so much, like he has a narrow view, right? And so coding, you know, it can kind of shape where your research is going. If you notice something that's occurring while you're coding that you didn't expect, then you could take your project a different way. So maybe
grounded theory and how you let the data drive everything.
Absolutely.
So kind of the same with digital humanities is you do the thing and then you realize the problem. And so kind of the same, you know, it brings up questions and it brings up all of this, just like the grounded theory.
or you have like a certain literary, you know, critical analysis, you know, way that you're looking at it, and then when you graph it or map it, you notice something else, or that maybe that shapes the type of things you graph or map or put in the tree. Because I was thinking, well, how do you decide what you put in the tree? Or
Well,
map?
and I think that's some of the things that others have been suggesting. I mean, the article that Katie and you guys were talking about was that closing that gap between the close and the distant because of things, the assumptions you made in order to make that distance read happen. So
Like,
grounded theory would be a great way around that.
and that's what we can kind of criticize about it. Like only he's capable of doing what we see in the text.
Yeah, it can't be recreated because, yeah.
Did you
And,
get to that? He doesn't feel like, oh,
oh no, not a bit to that.
shows you what he's doing.
Yeah. Other takeaways? What do you think, Jennifer?
Was the distant reading mind, am I correct that he mentioned that people kind of don't really read anything anymore?
Oh, he may. Everybody seems to say that, but we're reading everything. So.
Well, okay, but my students, you know, the high school kids, it seems like they would jump through, you know, a mountain and swim down a river to not read, but they would like scour the internet to get faulty information on what they're reading, even when they have a test. It's so easy to catch them plagiarizing because they'd rather dig it up on the internet when it would be easier if they would just spend some time finding their own ideas, you know. So that is my biggest takeaway from this whole like distant reading thing, or this, you know, whatever. I am glad that he wrote this because seeing things in the map form has really taken this like to a new level. And I, you know, as far as digital humanities and my project in particular, like I would have never ever thought of anything like this before. So it is mind expanding for sure.
Cool. Excellent. Excellent. Any final words, Abigail, Bob, Peter, Lonnie? So anybody want to read this again? I mean, we did it. We did it. Don't throw the book across the room when you find that mathematical equation in reading machines. You've been warned. Get yourself a really nice cup of tea. Brace yourself because it's coming, baby.
What is that book? Calvino. What am I thinking of? We read it for an Alfredo right before she left. Calvino, where it jumps all over the place.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So applying Matt Scratch and Tree's literary criticism to Calvino.
Oh, another.
Like, I can't.
Brain scanners. Oh my gosh.
I need to text her about that.
She loves it. All right, guys. So let me know if you have any questions. We'll just keep on carrying on. Yeah, looking forward to the next, and I'll look forward to finishing up Jones. So we'll keep talking about Jones, and we'll talk about Second Life next time. How many of you know about Second Life?
I heard it in the office
Okay.
when I was watching Office. Dwight was.
Dwight is it? That's great.
Awesome. He has Second Life.
Thank you guys so much. You guys have a good night.